relationships.
About understanding, discipline, strategies, arts should be taken and should be reintegrated in our civilization.
Some in the AK party even want the glories of the Ottoman past taught more prominently in schools. Cemal Oshak spent 7 years in school with Erdogan.
As far as I remember, when I was about 15 years old in Imam Hatip School together with Tayyip Erdogan, we were hearing some stories from our teacher, for example. Some times ago, 100 years ago or 150 years ago, someone could travel from Sarajevo to Yemen with no border, with no visa, just with Turkish language, with Ottoman language. There was no border. It was a kind of dream for us.
And the Turkish government in recent years abolished visas for countries like Yemen, Lebanon, Libya and Egypt. Many Turks still hark back to the Ottoman period as a golden era.
Dünya hiç olmasa şeyini, yetkisini, etkisini göstermek için isterim. Kanuni Sultan Süleyman'ın Fransuva'ya yazdığı bir mektup var. Ayağıma çizmeyi giydim geliyorum diyordu. O dönemleri tabii isterim.
We don't have a problem with that history. We take pride in that history. I mean, I personally take pride in that history. Because I belong to that history. I can't change the fact that, you know, I come from that kind of a background. The question is, what do you do with that history now? In Turkey, we are making peace with our history and geography after a long time.
Turkey's growing economic influence across the region has brought a new assertiveness that has led some of Erdogan's critics to accuse him of harboring Ottoman-style ambitions.
With the current AKP government, Turkey appears to be seeking its golden age, not in the future, but in the past. It would be wrong to try to revive the Ottoman system. That's part of history. We have to look into the future.
You know, many in the West and even in Turkey talk about this idea of Neo-Ottomanism driving Turkish foreign policy, and particularly Prime Minister Erdogan's vision. I think that in many ways it's not about Neo-Ottoman, it's actually about New Ottomans. And I think his speech that he gave after his election victory, where he talked about Turkey's influence from the Balkans all the way out to the Middle East and Afghanistan, does inspire fear.
Well, the Neo-Ottoman reference is, I think, sometimes exaggerated. The government doesn't define its policy as Neo-Ottoman. And I think Turkey never wants to establish an empire again by, extending its borders. That certainly is not the case. But there is some rediscovery of Ottoman identity and culture. And one outcome is that not an empire building, but a sense of responsibility for the region.
But if Turkey is to become a model for other states in the region, it has two major issues to confront: freedom of the press and the Kurdish question. Ertuğrul Korkçu is a member of parliament and a leading left-wing activist.
How many percentage of the media you think right now controlled by people who are close or change side, toward Mr. Erdogan?
More than 80%.
80%.
He alleges that business friends of Erdogan have been buying out newspapers critical of the government.
The right to organize, the right to free speech, media rights, freedom of expression has been worsening in a very blunt way. For the time being, there are around 70 journalists in prison. This is a huge number for a democratic country.
There is widespread wiretapping, Nobody can talk with their friends, even with their wives.
According to the International Press Institute, Turkey has more journalists in prison than China and Iran.
Turkey has made tremendous progress in that regard. I mean, freedom of press, freedom of minorities, freedom of religion, some of the old problems that we have had from the past, oppression of the media, expression, freedom of expression, and the like. In fact, they belong to the past. I mean, Turkey is a free country.
But the outstanding and seemingly irreconcilable problem is still the Kurdish issue. The Kurdistan Workers' Party, the PKK, is fighting for self-determination. The conflict with Turkish security forces has claimed the lives of more than 30,000 people on both sides. The Turkish government says the PKK is a terrorist organization and refuses to negotiate with them.
In the 20th century, under a republic, Turkish state wanted to make the society much more homogeneous. And that included the banning of the Kurdish identity or the suppression of minorities. And now there's an effort in Turkey to revitalize and to appreciate the diversity that we really have in society. That's why sometimes the Ottoman idea is now a source of reference. When we defend Kurdish rights, I say, well, Kurds were free under the Ottoman Empire, why not now?
Some ask, well, if Turkey cannot solve its problem at home, what kind of legitimacy in this case Turkey have to tackle issues like this abroad in Afghanistan, in Palestine, in Middle East?
After years and years of persecution, discrimination against them, finally, the vast majority of the Turkish public now realizes that they are entitled to the same rights just like anyone else. And it is this government, this prime minister, that has made this possible. In the widest sense of the term, I mean, by taking political risks, by talking to different audiences, by investing billions of dollars in the Kurdish populated areas. The question is, will the PKK continue to be a terrorist organization, or will they disarm and give a chance to a peaceful democratic solution?
Pervin Boldan is deputy leader of the pro-Kurdish party, the BDP.
Ve her şeye rağmen PKK'nin birçok kez çatışmasızlık ve eylemsizlik süreci başlattığını da hepimiz çok iyi biliyoruz. Ama ne yazık ki bu konuda devlet üzerine düşeni yapmıyor. Çatışmasızlık ve eylemsizlik süreci tek taraflı olduğu zaman çatışmalar devam ediyor ve her birimiz yakınımızı kaybettik. Ben de dahil olmak üzere ben de eşimi kaybettim.
This is a nationalist rally in Ankara in protest at the killing by the PKK of Turkish soldiers. These young demonstrators are calling for the execution of the jailed Kurdish leader Abdullah Öcalan. This country clearly remains divided.
Expecting any government tackling the Kurdish issue in the peaceful way and negotiate with the Kurdish leadership and opposition and leaders in PKK, I think is just a dream for now, obviously. As you see, a lot of people, they just want military action, that's it.
There is a war going on in this country, and it's been going on for the last 3 decades. Until the Kurdish problem is able to be resolved in a political, not a military manner, Turkey will not be able to lecture any other country in the region about democratization. And I think it's telling that as we've watched the Arab Spring, the Palestinian Spring, that we're still waiting for a Kurdish Spring.
The AK Party has won the last 3 elections, and in a referendum, a government proposal to reform the Turkish constitution was approved.
Now Turkey wants to have a new constitution, improve democracy, human rights, and decrease all the tensions within the Turkey. That's why now Turkey having projects not just outside country in the Middle East, but also at the same time inside the country.
The presence of Prime Minister Erdogan on the international stage has meant that many are seeing Turkey as a template for other Muslim countries in the region. And some believe that Erdogan could be a potential leader of the Islamic world. an alternative to the Ayatollahs.
In my interactions with many of our counterparts in the Arab world and other places, I see three main points as far as their interest in Turkey is concerned. The first is the process of democratization that Turkey has gone through. The second is economic development, which has been a major success story for many countries in this part of the world. Third, the active foreign policy.
No, Turkey, given its current character, Turkey cannot and should not be a model for the Arab countries, because Turkish democracy is not making progress. It's going backwards in terms of the separation of powers, in terms of basic freedoms, in terms of the freedom of press, in terms of gender equality.
Their record as far as human rights abuses is not as grave as that of the Arab world. So I don't think the Arabs look to Turkey and say, oh dear, you are killers, and therefore we don't want to emulate you. They think, compared to our killers who rule us, this is the way to go.
I've been covering Turkish politics for more than 10 years, and I've seen significant changes. I've come to the conclusion that as Turkey